you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
In the name of Allah, the Most Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah.
That's right.
Who intervened in our affairs in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad.
That's right.
I bear witness of his raising one up from among us to lead us, teach us, and guide us out of the darkness of falsehood into the light of truth. That one that I speak of is none other than the Most Honorable Muhammad. And I further bear witness of Allah's divine mercy and comfort in our midst today. A reminder of what you and I, male as well as female, can ultimately become through the submission of our will to do Allah's will.
That's right.
And I speak of none other than our big brother, our leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
That's right.
Listen, their names do I greet my beloved family and the greeting words of peace. We said in the Arabic language, one of the many languages spoken by our ancestors and forefathers of old. Assalamu alaikum. Once again, how you doing, family?
Fine, sir.
Praise be to Allah. It is indeed an honor, privilege, and I would say and definitely a pleasure to come before my family today to share a few words of encouragement, enlightenment, and possibly some words that will help us to understand our divine purpose. The reason why you and I woke up this morning. The reason why we have another day to work out our personal salvation. Before I go any further, I do want to say that it was a pleasure to meet your mother, to soldier with your mother. This is one of the most consistent people that I've ever seen in terms of her demeanor and her character. Always had a very beautiful spirit.
Always.
Consistent.
Come on.
And you and I know that finding someone with that type of personality is hard to find in this world. Because all of us are confronted with things that shift our mind, that alters our feelings, personalities, our vibe, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
So to try to stay consistent in how you deal with people when you're undergoing certain things in life that's stressing you out, that's a challenge. But some way, somehow, Allah seemed fit to bless her with that conquering spirit. The way that she would be the same day in and day out, regardless of what she was going through.
That's right.
So I say that to say this, that she was an example for all of us. Someone that we dealt with personally to see that level of consistency, that level of love and compassion, especially for the mission.
Come on now.
Because oftentimes that when we go through certain things, we forget about the mission and start focusing solely on what we are personally going through. No prophet or messenger of Allah ever allowed his personal issues to affect the mission. And we can read throughout the annals of history that all of those great words that we read about, Bible as well as Quran, was consistently dealing with things that could have affected their perception of what they should do. But they continued to do not what they wanted to do necessarily, but what Allah commanded them to do.
That's right.
So this message that I worked on in this meal that we call preparing for the believers, because even though I put the work in preparing it with the help of Allah, it's not just for you, it's for me as well. It's for all of us.
Come on now.
So if you've ever had a conversation with someone and trying to uplift them, you may have noticed that after having that conversation and giving them those comforting words, those words of encouragement, right? Your spirit was lifted.
That's right.
That's because off of your tongue were rolling the words of God through you as the vessel, but you needed to hear those words as well.
Come on now.
And you surprise yourself sometimes, considering that the average speed of thought travels at a rate of 24 billion miles per second. You may be surprised that I actually said those things. But that's the beauty in that, is that when you spend your time, whether it's reading or listening to positive things, it's going in here, it's finding a firm resting place, and sometimes we forget what we actually know until the opportunity presents itself for us to regurgitate what we've already put in. So that is why we have to keep the scale tipped in the favorable side in terms of favorable things that we put in our minds. That way when the opportunity presents itself, we can give forth something of good.
Come on now.
The last shall be first, the first shall be last. Now I think all of us have heard these words before. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
I thought about the conversation that Jesus was having with the disciples regarding the parable of the laborers receiving equal pay. Some of them gripe because they put in more work and thought that they were more, in the parable, thought that they were more deserving of more for their labor.
Right.
Oftentimes we forget the mission and begin to focus on what I deserve.
Right.
Oftentimes we begin to think that you and I may deserve more than what we've actually put in.
Come on now.
But those of us that are working people may be punching the clock. We have a saying that says someone is milking the clock. Am I right?
Come on now.
You work somewhere where you may have been getting paid about an hour, or even if it's salary, and you see somebody ducked off somewhere. They're not working, they're what? Milking the clock, you may say.
Right.
Not that you may go look for the supervisor and report them, but in your mind, your perception of that person tends to change in terms of what they are putting forth in the labor of good to receive a honest day's work of pay. Am I right?
That's right, bro.
So these
Come on now.
that were considered laborers in this parable, they had an issue with their pay. But for those of us in America, you and I, as black men and black women in particular, there are people that have been in leadership, that have been the heads, and you and I have consistently been the tail since our forefathers were brought here to America to be builders of a heaven here on earth.
Right.
Right?
Right.
They are those who do not believe that we are deserving of what we ask for
Right.
our labor.
Come on now.
Am I right?
That's right, sir.
So what we have in the book of Matthew, the 20th chapter, verse 15 and verse 16, can you see it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now I may have to remind us that the mosque is actually a classroom.
That's right.
That's right.
And we come to the mosque as students with Allah's permission, seeking to learn more that will enable us to be better men and women.
That's right, bro.
That will enable us to be better students, which ultimately can lead to us becoming better teachers.
That's right.
Because in order to be a great teacher, you have to first what? Be a great student. Am I
That's
right?
right, sir. Come on now.
Praise be to Allah. So in the conversation, and you can read starting in chapter 20, verse 1, and read the whole parable. But what you will see is that in verse 15 and 16, it says, "Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with my own?" This is the one that gave the payment. And he was addressing the laborers. "Is thine eye evil because I am good?" Modern translation. Are you looking at me as evil because I'm doing good? Right?
Right.
So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Now when we look at this language, called and chosen, in order to understand things and put words in its proper perspective, in order for us to be able to extract the meanings that will help us to process these words better, so that they can become internalized within us and we can function better, we have to define these words.
Right. Right.
First and foremost, you and I know that Jesus did not speak English. Am I right?
All right, bro.
So we have translation. So we have to get to the core of what was the substance in this message to the disciples.
Good question.
In defining call, we see that call means to summon a particular activity, to invite. Many of you and I invited, we called somebody to come to the mosque.
Yeah.
Not that we invite people to come somewhere just to hang out, which the mosque is a beautiful place to hang out.
Right.
Am I right?
That's right.
Because what makes it beautiful? Because you're around beautiful, positive energy.
Yeah. That's right, bro.
So you go or you are called to a party, where you know most of us have went to parties in our life, pretty much all of us, right? Even children go to parties. And sometimes if your child go to a party and the adults that are there are filled with negativity, your child may be exposed to certain things that you wish not your child to be exposed to.
Right.
Right?
Come on now.
And you know how we are. We're all grown. You can't tell me nothing, right?
Right.
So then you may be at a party, a child party, and begin to have issues. And we've seen now with social media and modern technology, people are filming in Chuck E. Cheese throwdowns amongst the parents, right? But your child was having their 5th birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, and you went there with good intentions, but because something happened, some negativity was involved, and all of a sudden now they're fist swinging. Welcome to America. So the last shall be first and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Look at chosen. What does chosen mean? One who is the object of choice or of divine favor. That is something that all of us need to understand. Now, I'm not talking about just all of us that are presently here right now, but my mission is to help everybody that we come in contact with that looks like us to understand these words.
Right.
But few chosen, one who is the object of choice or of divine favor. Our lack of proper perception has affected our interaction with one another.
Yes, that's right.
Proper perception prevents poor performance. So what we're going to look at today is what was, what is, and what will be. That's very important to understand that when you're looking at something, all of us have a history. When you're looking at the overall picture of something, it has a history of where it started, where it is, and possibly where it will be in the future. So we're talking about those of us that have been the bottom of the ladder, been at the bottom of the ladder, right? The stone that the builders rejected, which will ultimately become what? The cornerstone.
Right.
And you know the cornerstone is what the strongest, because that's what forms the foundation. Am I right? What we want to do is look at the Quran now. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
We must strive to see things and understand things on a higher level. Since I'm talking about the chosen, right, divine favor, the Holy Quran says it like this in the 21st chapter, verse 11. It says, "And how many a town which was iniquitous did we demolish, and we raised up after it another people?"
Yes. Think on that.
This is very important.
Think about it.
So, if you have an issue with something or someone's leadership, and if you believe in your heart that that leadership is going to vanish, it's going to be demolished, then what are we doing as students to prepare for the day when we will be in leadership, and how will we lead? If we don't know anything,
Right.
if we haven't studied,
Right.
if we haven't prepared ourselves to be worthy recipients of a leadership title.
Right.
Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Let's look at it. Iniquitous, grossly unfair and morally wrong, evil, rotten, unlawful, unrighteous, vicious, vile, wrong. Doesn't that sound like a lot of things that we see going on in the world today?
Absolutely.
In particular here in America? Demolish, to do away with, destroy. We call heaven, a synonym that we use to describe heaven is hereafter. What we say, hereafter the wicked rule that we know of that exists today is destroyed, right? That's when you and I will see heaven. Or we say hereafter. Because we use the word hereafter to put the proper context of the word heaven in its truest form, where it's tangible. Not that we want to see the pie in the sky and streets paved in gold on a cloud, which we know can't exist because it's too heavy. The gravitational pull won't allow it to exist.
Right.
So take that out of your mind and let's deal with the reality that you and I enjoy bean pie right here on the earth.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And we I think most of us enjoy, fine things that comes out of the earth. We're from the earth, so we enjoy those things that comes from the earth, diamonds, gold, and all those things, right?
Yes, sir.
Raised, and we raised up after it another people. Raised to cause or help to rise to a standing position, elevated, heightened, increased. All of us as a people need to be what? Elevated, heightened, and increased.
That's right.
Increased across the board. Because we've been put into a system that has caused us to not be hyped, to not be elevated,
That's right.
to not be increased. And we are confronted daily with things that seeks to keep us stagnated, non-productive.
That's right.
So it's only when you come up on a certain body of knowledge and when you begin to understand it, it's like your eyes become open. You say, oh, I see.
That's right.
I see what we're missing. And so then you begin to function different. Remember what I said earlier? Proper perception prevents poor performance. You don't perform at the same level.
Right.
When you become conscious,
That's right.
when you become heightened and elevated, you don't perform at that same level you did when you just going about like dust.
Right.
And you and I know that when you dust in your house, you find dust in places that you never knew existed. You say, how did that dust get up there? And see, when you look at that dust, right, you start dusting, whether you dusting low or you dusting high. The same dust that found itself here can find itself on the top of that national pole.
Right.
And I think I do see something.
Right.
It's a wonder what eyeglasses can do. I see something. But that same dust found its way up there, and there's some dust, some cousin dust right here, right? Right, I don't have white glove on, but you get the picture, right?
Yes, sir.
That's like some of us. As black men and black women, we've been put in certain positions. We've been dusted to higher places as a token for our eyes. But you and I, when we become conscious and elevated and heightening our thinking, we can listen. Allah has blessed us with ears so we can listen. And we can hear the dust particles saying things that is not congruent with the liberation of our people. I'm thinking about our sister Tamika Mallory today.
Right.
Right now, this sister is a warrior.
Yes.
And as I was listening to her words, Brother Darrell shared like 2 videos with me, and I'm listening to her words. In the last video he shared, there was another sister who was probably one of those dust particles that had been elevated, right? In terms of status. But her words and her mindset was not congruent with the liberation and the rise of a fallen people.
Right.
It was more in harmony with the system that seeks to keep the people down.
Right.
So when you have ears, let him who has ears what hear.
Yeah.
So you're able to process this thing more quickly, more readily, and say, oh, wait a minute. We need to do some dusting.
Right.
Are you listening? Damn.